to 8:30 ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಒಂದು ಝೂಮ್ ಪ್ಲಾಟ್ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ನಾವು.
They've started with the YouTube link ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
ಓಕೆ,
ಅದನ್ನ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಳೆ ಈಗ ಶ್ರುತಿ.
34 participants so far.
What's the time now?
4 o'clock exactly.
Exactly 4. Probably we can wait a couple of minutes.
We can give them some couple of minutes. Ado ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಾ, 3:55 to 4:05, it's like prime time. All of them will be trying to get in.
Absolutely no worry, madam. I'm already at your service. Whenever you say yes, I'll go ahead.
ಎಷ್ಟು ಅನ್ಸರ್ಟನ್ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಬ್ರಿಗೆ ಹುಷಾರಿದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಇನ್ನೊಬ್ರಿಗೆ ನಾಳೆ ಹುಷಾರಿಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು. ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಪ್ರಿಟಿ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಈವನ್ ಫಾರ್ ಅಸ್.
ಅಂಡ್ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ದ ಪ್ರಯಾರಿಟಿ, ಐ ಮೀನ್ ನೀವು ಏನು ಹೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ.
ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಟು ಲೈಕ್ ಗೋ ಥ್ರೂ ಕೈಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ರೋಲರ್ ಕೋಸ್ಟರ್ ರೈಡಿಂಗ್. ನಾಡಿದ್ ಮುಗಿಯೋ ತನಕನೂ ಯಾರು ನಂಗೆ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹುಷಾರಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಬಿ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ರೆಡಿ.
ಯಾ ಐ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್. ಹೌದು.
Ma'am, ಇವತ್ತು ಸ್ಟೂಡೆಂಟ್ ವಾಲಂಟಿಯರ್ಸ್ ಯಾರು? ಐ ಆಮ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು see them. Today listed
it must be Fazila and Vinay. Yesterday Kiranmai and Aisha.
ಅದೇ ನೋಡ್ದೆ.
I'll just put a message in the group. I'm not able to see any of them.
ನಾನು ಅದೇ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೆ.
ನಾನು ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ತಡೀರಿ.
ಓಕೆ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
ಶೀಲಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಕಳಿಸಿ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಶೀಲಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ವುಡ್ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ನೌ. ಕಳ್ಸಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದೇ ಈಗ ಲಕ್ಕಿಲಿ ಈಗ ಸದ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಫೋನ್ ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಹಂಗೆ ಕಳ್ಸಿದ್ದೀನಿ. Forty-three participants. ಬಂದ್ರು. ಶೀಲಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಆಯ್ತು.
ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಶೀಲಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಇಸ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ 50 ಪಾರ್ಟಿಸಿಪೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡೋಣ. ವಾಟ್ ಡು ಯು ಥಿಂಕ್?
ಅಖಿಲಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
Akila ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
There are 50 participants. Should we just start?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Shall we go ahead and start? Shruti ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, ADIM, they have raised their hand. Please, messages, okay, sometimes not visible.
ಹೌದು ಗೋವಿಂದಪ್ಪ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ,
ಹಾ,
sometimes
sir.
not visible.
See, it
Some
could be
input-
also a problem at the end with the internet program
Internet
because ನಮ್ಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ.
Yes,
All of us
ma'am.
are able to
It's
hear.
clearly visible.
Probably he has some issues that is, and probably you should check that. Can somebody type a message, please check your internet connection ಅಂತ.
ಅಥವಾ ಸೆಷನ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಸರಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
Okay. All right then.
We can start, I suppose.
Yeah. Shruti ma'am, shall I start?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Send the YouTube link on my WhatsApp.
Then okay.
All right.
Yes, ma'am. We can. I think 50 and odd participants. That's more
Yeah, I
than
think that's a good number
sufficient to begin. So let them come.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today is the third day of the Faculty Development Program on effective implementation of curriculum with special focus on fourth semester textbooks, BCom textbooks, Insights 4 and Confluence 4. On behalf of Jain College, Vasavi Campus and the Department of English, I would like to welcome all of you to this program today. Today, we have Professor N.G. Narasimhan sir as a resource person with us, who will be basically focusing on Arthur Miller's play, All My Sons, and also will be talking to us about certain aspects of the language portions. A very warm welcome to you, sir. On behalf of English Department and the college and our principal, I extend a very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Before we start the session, I would like to give you a very brief introduction to sir. Professor N.G. Narasimhan sir is the head of the department at the Vijaya Evening College presently. He has 2 postgraduate degrees, both in Kannada and English. And he has had more than 25 years of teaching experience. He's taught various levels, PUC, UG, and also Polytechnic students. He's also worked as a guest faculty at many colleges in Bangalore. And he has worked as a question paper setter for reputed colleges and autonomous universities in Bangalore. He has also been the chief examiner at BU and BCU and worked as a member of the textbook committee for BSc, BCA, BCom, BBA, both for BU and BCU. He continues to work as an evaluator and a reviewer in the evaluation camps of BU and BCU, and has taught communicative English to many students in many parts of Karnataka. So it's a great honor that you have agreed to come and talking to us. Thank you so much, and over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Usha madam. Thank you so much. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Namaste to all my teaching fraternity, all my friends in the teaching fraternity. First of all, I would like to extend my thanks to Jain College, its management, the principal, the teaching staff and the non-teaching staff, and most importantly, as some of the teachers who were expressing their views on the student volunteers. I mean, they are the backbone, to any sort of such events. So my thanks to all those young students. Dear friends, it's really a privilege to be a resource person. I'm a speaker now today, and I really feel this as an honor addressing the teaching fraternity. I mean, because I'm also one among you, and I always relish any opportunity that has come my way while addressing some of the issues. It could be on the textbook or any other, academic interest rather. So I always feel it as an honor. It's a privilege to be talking to you, addressing, a very intellectual gathering like this. Today, my dear friends, I'm going to share my views on All My Sons. All My Sons is a 3-act play written by American playwright Arthur Miller. Now, this All My Sons text is an exclusive drama or play meant for 4th semester BCom students of Bengaluru City University, BCU. Well, these are my views, and I'm also going to view, or I'm also try to be the voice of my honorable members of my textbook committee as well. I'll also share my views on that. And also today I'm going to speak a few words about language section and also model question paper and question paper pattern. I'm sorry to say this because yesterday Dr. R.V. Sheila madam had, very nicely, briefed on such matters, language section and QP pattern. But I have been asked to, spend some time even on language section. Well, my last 2 slides will be dedicated to those sections. So firstly, let us come to the very, very essential challenge that we are facing and we have been facing as well for some time now. The next thing is online classroom teaching, dear friends, because the text I'm going to deal with today, present my, a PPT on all my sons. Now, this is going to be the text for one whole semester, 4th sem BCom, and invariably most of the teachers, all of the teachers will be doing their classes online. Now, it's a different ball game altogether. Offline classes will be different. Online classes will be different from the perspective of the teacher as well as a student. And, the methodology will be different as well. Even the, the receivers for that matter, our, the student, friends as well, they will also find extremely difficult to follow each and everything. But it is the biggest challenge that we are going to take on our shoulders. So we have to make every other challenge meet as well. And we have to evolve certain methodologies, ourselves to make those classes more meaningful, appealing as well. That is, my forte, which has been. We have to make each and every text, lesson or poetry or drama, novel, whatever, or the grammar section, it has to be more appealing. It has to reach, the target audience. So, well, these online classrooms will pose different challenges for us, especially when it comes to a play. Don't forget, we are teaching a play, we are not showing them a play. No doubt, we can give them, some videos, visual, lessons as well. We can also give them some study material on All My Sons by Arthur Miller. We can give them some, short videos on them. If possible, if there are, some, videos of the whole play being enacted, we can also post them, share them with them for the better understanding of, the text. But what I request to you, my dear friends, is as teachers, I believe, we have supreme confidence on the ability of our teachers. We are quite innovative. We are very inventive. We are with some fresh ideas, fresh methodology as well. So we know very well how to tackle those, classrooms. For example, I am doing a text called All My Sons. How am I going to approach this? Well, from my point of view, I would like to request, all my dear friends here to go through the text first and also annotate those wonderful dialogues. I mean, most of you would remember very well during your PG levels, you might have had those annotations as well. There are so many utterances in the play, the dialogues uttered by those important characters. They are very, very important, my dear friends. They are to be mentioned, and each and every line, I tell you, this is a fabulous textbook. This is a fabulous play to be done, in offline class or for that matter, online classroom. Well, from our side, supreme effort should be there to read out all those important utterance, important lines, of those, dialogues as well. So that is one thing which we should not fail ourselves. So, I mean, the story of All My Sons in the text is given in the Insights 4 itself. Anyhow, you have got 2 PDFs available. One is, the Insights 4 textbook, which comprises of language section and literary section. The next one being the play itself, by Arthur Miller, 2 PDFs, in the website. But in the Insights 4 text, after all those 5 poems, you have the next 6th unit as the summary of the whole play. For the convenience of the teachers as well as students, we have made it a point to give a sort of summary, a very detailed summary of the whole play. Anybody who would like to read that for the first time will come to know what the story is all about. That is very crucial. You need to generate that interest level. You have to keep that interest level intact throughout the play. So that's why we have to tell them the story first. And that is why you have been given in the text the whole story. Also, it comes with approaches to the text. We have a note on the author, the playwright Arthur Miller. We have a glossary as well, very, very detailed glossary. If you have observed, if you have turned those pages. And also it comes with the plot, the summary of the whole play. It also comes with two different sets of questions, comprehension 1 and comprehension 2. I agree. When I touch upon the text, the model question paper later on, I will specify that this whole of the play will be only for 10 marks in the examination. The students are expected to answer a long answer question from this play. Only one question needs to be answered from this play. Whereas the comprehension 1 questions, they are meant for short answers, maybe a half page or 1 page. It is for the convenience of the teachers to gel those questions if possible, to make them look like big answer questions. You can modify that. So the comprehension questions are very extensive. You have some more than 15 questions in each and every comprehension. So it is for the benefit of all my teacher friends here, also to my student friends. My dear friends, also let me tell you, if you want, you can have this suggested reading as well. All my sons, it has been translated to Kannada as well by Professor Cheena Mangala as Yellaru Nammavare. That is a fantastic effort as well. If you want, you can also refer that and suggest the students about the same as well. So my dear friends, we are all set to get into my presentation, and here we go. So I am going to share my screen. Hope my screens are visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. My dear friends, this is a presentation on All My Sons by Arthur Miller. And well, what is the objective? Now,
Sir, sorry to disturb.
Yes,
sir, you
ma'am.
can go on the presentation mode, as in full screen mode.
Okay, I'll see.
ಅದು ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸರ್.
ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಫುಲ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಇದ್ರದ್ದು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಶನ್ ಮೋಡ್ ಅಂತ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ ಸರ್.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ
ಡೌನ್ ದ
ಸರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ.
Okay, just a minute, I'll see.
ಸರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 75% ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇದು ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಕಾಣ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ? ಅದ್ರ ಪಕ್ಕ ಒಂದು ಐಕಾನ್ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ ಸರ್, ಒಂದು ಕಪ್ ತರ. It's like a slide presentation.
100 ಮಾಡಿ.
Just a minute.
It's a slide show. Yeah.
ಹಾ ಪರ್ಫೆಕ್ಟ್.
Okay, madam, is it visible?
ಆಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ನಿಮ್ದು ಕರ್ಸರ್ ರೈಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಆರೋ ಅಥವಾ ಡೌನ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಪ್ ಆರೋ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದನ್ನು ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ the slide will change.
Sure.
ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸರ್ ಇದು.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. You can continue.
No, yeah, thank you. My dear friends, coming back to the objective here. Now, many of us will ask ourselves, why this play all about? I mean, why this play has been kept for 4th semester BCom students. I'll come to BCom students later, but let us have a look at the objective, the first 2 points as such. Now, my dear friends, we have been, teaching several novels, plays more in general for that matter, for 4th semester students. Even when we had annual scheme, we had plays like, Macbeth, The Tempest. Then we came to, Silver Box, and then we came to a semester scheme where we had, Where There Is a Will, Silence, the Court is in Session, Loyalties. And if you take novellas for that matter, we had Silas Marner's, by Silas Marner as well. So we have had, the history of, having an exclusive text for 4th semester students or the 2nd year students. So being a part of Insights for literature component, it is a part of literature component. It aims at introducing an exclusive, modern, marvelous English play. I know very well, most of you might have gone through the play as such. Well, you can always do that even now. And once you read the play, you will come to a very definite conclusion that this is an apt play which holds good even for today. It has got so much relevant factors which could be, understood even today as well. So this is an exclusive play. We as, teachers, will have to hand over an exclusive text for students to read themselves, to study as a text. That is one objective which we had. And the second one being to create a sort of social awareness among students about the need of ethics and responsibility. Why not? After all, we are teachers, we have our own responsibility, we are facilitators as well. We need to cater to the needs of society, the youngsters who are going to become, the next generation, responsible citizens as well, or already. So it is a sort of, awareness campaign through textbooks, my dear friends. We should really let them know about the need of ethics, the moral scruples, the principles, the discipline, the social responsibility, the political commitment as well. All these things which are embedded, in a play. And therefore, we actually chose this play, All My Sons, because it has got everything in it. Now, the next one being, the great social awareness. It's also our duty to enlighten BCom students about the importance of morality, scruples in business, apart from profit making, being successful and reaching targets. No doubt, this is a play which is meant for BCom students. Now, what do BCom students study, my dear friends, other than languages? They'll deal with accounts, they'll deal with, business ethics or some of the other business related regulations, income tax, something like that. So they will have those subjects in their core, ideas. As a language text, we thought, let us introduce something which has got something special, exclusive, relevant for only BCom students. I repeat, my dear friends, it need not be only for BCom students. It is for all. All My Sons is for all of us. But we are concentrating on BCom text today. BCom students will read a lot of accounting, accountancy. But what about accountability? We are accountable not only to our family or, for that matter, our employer. We are accountable to society at large. We are accountable to citizens at large. We are accountable to our state, our society, our country. So accountability factor is very important, other than reading something about accounts as such. And one more thing, we try to tell them that, going forward, you will invest money. Businessmen are those people who invest money, invest their capital in some, businesses. Well, no doubt, they invest money. What about investing ideals, morals, rather, or ethical parts, rather? Is it not really necessary to have ethical part of business? Is it not really essential for a commerce graduate or in the making of, graduate? Is it not necessary for him or her to learn more about ethics apart from, profit making, being successful or reaching targets? No doubt, if you take my evening college, most of my students are already employed. They are employees, my dear friends. Day in and day out, they worry about, reaching the targets or meeting the targets. Okay, I agree, it is required, but reaching targets, profit making, being successful, no doubt they're all essential for students. But apart from that, being accountable, answerable to society is also something which is relevant. So that is why we have All My Sons for, especially BCom students. Now, the fourth point is to sensitize students about the relevance of relationships, bonding, ethical quotient, finer and subtle feelings among humans. Aren't they missing nowadays, my dear friends? How many times we have felt the need for, learning these things or imbibing such things? Are we really, going away from relationships? Now, it's high time that we teach our students the importance of bonding, importance of, being very, very close to society, not detached from society. Yeah, I could be a businessman. I could be, a big shot in business, but my social responsibility will really keep me ticking. And also, I will feel relevant. I will feel belonging to society. So therefore, ethical quotient is important. Bonding is another important factor. And finer, subtle feelings among humans. I mean, it could be love, it could be friendship, it could be affection, it could be parental affection as well. All these are very, very subtle and finer. So we need to have some space to understand such thing. And we have to make our students understand that, they too have a role to play in our lives. So that's why the objective carries this point. And, above all, the fifth point, to hold a mirror to the society through the characters. Why not? I mean, each and every author, it could be a novel or a story or an essay or a drama. At the hindsight, he or she will have one idea, one message, one intention. That is to hold a mirror to the society. Literature is nothing but, reflection of society, reflection of life. That is what is going to be seen or read in those books. And if you turn the pages of All My Sons, dear friends, you will feel that it talks about neighborhood. When I come to introducing those characters in the play, my dear friends, I will have a lot of things to say about those individuals. It talks about neighborhood. It talks about love. It talks about marriage. It talks about father and mother. It talks about crisis. It talks about challenges in family life. It talks about war situation as well. War situation as well. So all these things are the objectives. There are many other, but I just wanted to highlight and emphasize on these representative ones. Now, the next slide deals with the playwright. So why the play is answered. Now, Arthur Miller, what is he and who is he? The playwright is Arthur Miller, my dear friends. He is an American dramatist, essayist, very well known for most of his plays, but very renowned are All My Sons and Death of a Salesman. And it has been given in the text also in the introduction to Arthur Miller. He's very famous for All My Sons and Death of a Salesman. Commercially very successful. He had relevant plots. He reflected contemporary mindset and milieu. Whenever, I think of Arthur Miller, I'm reminded of William Shakespeare. Even when William Shakespeare wrote his plays, he had this uncanny knack of knowing the pulse of the society, the people who lived in his society. He had this knack of understanding what people like, what people hate, what people dislike. And therefore, you could see whenever he wrote his plays, it could be tragedies, most importantly, tragedies of William Shakespeare. He always added the element of supernatural. The supernatural element, was something which really caught the imagination of the people in those days. They used to watch those plays. They used to read those characters. And that was a big hit amongst people. So Shakespeare was very successful. Just like Shakespeare, you have one more gentleman in Arthur Miller who was commercially very successful. It has been given in the introduction, my dear friends, more than 500 to 600 shows, of those plays, All My Sons and Death of a Salesman. They were a big hit amongst people because he always knew very well what people wanted. He always wrote about contemporary society and, the culture, the people around him, the milieu as well. So that means he knew what people wanted. And that is one thing which really, is very key factor about Arthur Miller. And he wanted to speak his mind through his characters. If you go through the details of Arthur Miller, it's available even on Google as well. He was politically, a very agile and alert thinker. He was an intellectual writer, which comes later. He always wanted to speak his mind. This is where a writer, a creative writer gets an opportunity to speak his mind, to voice his, opinion. He always chose his characters in the drama which he wrote, and through those characters, he always told what he wanted to tell society. So he wanted to speak his mind through his characters, which he has done, even in All My Sons. And the next one being, he is a writer with strong social and political commitments. I mean, you can't imagine any writer, normally rather, you would not really see him or her detached from society or, seemingly unaffected by the happenings in society. the incidents in society or the administrative blunders of the government or the policies made by the government. So he always, was a writer who had strong social and political commitment. Next comes the point. He was an intellectual writer who strongly criticized contemporary American society and its values. I mean, you really have to be gutsy. You really have to be gutsy, very bold and courageous to write like that. He always, criticized, commented upon the follies of the government policies as well. He was an intellectual writer. My dear friends, today also, whenever we speak of intellectuals, whom we call buddhijeevigalu anta heltevi, whenever we take or whenever we read about them, there are good number of people in society who will have a lot of questions to pose to such, intellectuals rather. No doubt. No doubt, people have their own rights to, comment, speak against them, but it is quite important to observe, or it is quite important to read what those intellectuals observe rather. Definitely, it will not be a waste of time. Most of the time, they speak sense. What they speak will be very sensible rather. Even Arthur Miller was an intellectual writer who strongly criticized. If you look at the observations which he has made even in the play as well, you will come to know how the American society made all those blunders rather. And this may not be very useful for, classroom situation, but for your kind information, famous actress Marilyn Monroe was once his wife. I will not dwell upon this point anyhow, more, but this is just an information about him, dear friends. Well, the next one is the play itself. Now, why this play? What does it contain in it? What does it have in it? It is a play with a very, very gripping storyline with intense characterization. My dear friends, I will not be wondered, really. I will not be surprised at all if you start reading the pages of, this play right from the first page, you will start looking at this play with a kind of curiosity as well. It really develops the curiosity right from the word go. It has got a very gripping storyline, different shades in it, and intense characterization. It's not a loose plot. Each and every character there has got something in him or her. And if I want to talk about the theme as well, it has got a universal theme. It has got a universal theme. Universal theme means even today, theme of social responsibility is relevant. Even today, political commitment is something which is really required. Even today, familial relationships, family bonding is something which is there. Love and hatred, my dear friends, inseparable from our society, and feeling of family relationships as well, it's already there. So it's a theme relevant to all times. So it is a universal theme. Now, what does the story have? Well, the story has got everything in it, all sorts of feelings. It has got love. It speaks of success. If you talk of success, my dear friends, BCom students will definitely look very joyous because they want to achieve something in society. They want to start earning rather, because BCom course is especially job oriented. And also it becomes practical thinking. This play gives us a different dimension of practical thinking and also a little bit of crookedness on the part of one of the characters in the story. You can see parental affection. You can see a sort of revenge factor here. You can see conscience playing a very, very pivotal role. My dear friends, conscience is something which really we have forgotten, for most of the times rather. All my sons will force all of us to rethink, to revisit this particular value. It talks about values, war and its futility. It is a story which has got Second World War as its background. And as we know very well, between 1914 and 1918, First World War took place. And between 1939 and 1945, if I am right, Second World War happened. And America was a very important, America played a very important part in the Second World War. Rather, it was dragged into the vortex of Second World War. And America had its own role to play. It wanted to show that it is the master of the world as well. So it has got war theme as well. Well, no doubt, in a war, you win and you lose and you die as well. But it has got its own futility as well. Along with success comes the futility factor, the uselessness factor. And then you have helplessness. You have sin and confession. You have sin and retribution. Yesterday, Sheila Madam was talking about sin and retribution. Why not? Why not? Aptly said. Aptly said. I can really cheat the entire world, but I cannot cheat myself. Conscience is something which carries a lot of weight. I can't really bear the burden of that sin as well. And one fine day or the other, you will have to confess. You will have to confess. And that is what we are going to see, in the play. And then you have the next point, wartime demands. Unethical, illegal, immoral ways of meeting them. And boldly I have written, futile sacrifice of men. Now, my dear friends, wartime demands are very, very hectic. Sometimes they are very impossible to meet. Sometimes, these business houses, these manufacturers, these makers of weapons and all the spare parts, which go into the making of huge, weapons or bodies or aircrafts or whatever, rather, they will follow some unethical, illegal, and immoral ways as well. When there is a huge demand for something, as a business representative, as a manufacturer, as a businessman, sometimes I will resort to profit making. I will resort to some foul means of meeting those demands or fulfilling those demands of the government. And what happens later? Futile sacrifice of men, my dear friends. Futile sacrifice of men here, men actually mean the soldiers. In fact, the pilots, especially in the story, All My Sons. 21 pilots get killed because of the blunder made by one man. 21 pilots. Well, it could be the matter of 21 or 1 or 20,000. The number is not important here. Why those unfortunate people sacrificed? They were sacrificed, they sacrificed their lives not only for the sake of their nation, but because of the stupidity, because of the profit making, because of a blunder made by a businessman, an industrialist, a factory owner. I think if I can just digress from this point, recently we saw 2 instances. One is the death of teachers who went on election duty when by-elections were conducted in Karnataka. We don't know about all the other elections conducted elsewhere in India. I'm talking about Karnataka. We read in the newspapers, even we saw the visuals on the news channels as well. More than 50 teachers died due to COVID. Now, all these teachers wouldn't have got killed mercilessly like this if they had not gone to those election duties, rather. Let us assume that at least some of them would have been spared, would have been alive today. Now, why did those teachers go there? Why did they contract the disease? Who actually prompted them to go? I'm sorry, the authorities, I may sound somewhat harsh here. I may sound very, very cruel here, but that is the fact. That is the fact, my dear friends. Teachers were sent to those election duties and they contracted this, virus got in and it took out the lives from them. Not only from them, my dear friends, their families are left in lurch today. Their families are questioning, the government about the decision to conduct elections during pandemic, during COVID-19. How is it possible? Is it not a policy blunder? Is it not an administrative blunder which took away the lives of innocent people who otherwise would have just, got into their teaching profession or teaching classes? But today, we are mourning the deaths of those teachers, my dear friends. Their sacrifice have gone futile. Unfortunately, in one of those constituencies, election was held because the man who represented, that particular constituency also died due to COVID. Now look at this important thing. We have not realized from our mistakes. So therefore, futile sacrifice of men. Soldiers die for the nation. This is the second point after digressing from the main point. Secondly, I would like to ask you, hundreds and thousands of soldiers die for the sake of the country. And as citizens, what do we give them back for their sacrifice? Do we really remember the names of those soldiers, my dear friends? At least some 10 names, including me. Do we really remember? No. Their sacrifice definitely will go a waste. In this play, we come across a character, Mr. Chris. Chris is the son of Joe Keller, who is a businessman and who has done his blunder. The character Chris feels very sorry for the lives of those people which have been lost in the battle. Even Larry, one of the soldiers in the story, he also loses his life for the sake of one of the blunders made by a business house, who happens to be his own father, my dear friends. So a futile, sacrifice of men. Even after 10,000 people die, man will never mend his mistake. He will never accept his fault. That is the most, crooked thing which can happen to this society. And then the last thing, this play teaches us who is a real human being. Who can we call a real human being, rather? Well, one who is socially responsible, answerable, accountable, not being selfish. He is a real human being, my dear friends. So quickly, let us go on to the next slide, the players. We saw the playwright, we saw the play, and now the players themselves. Players, invariably, I mean the characters in the story, the characters in the story. Well, we have a list of characters there. Also, it has been given in the play as well. Joe Keller, I would just give you a brief introduction to all these characters. I will not get into the detail of the whole story as such, because in the Insights 4 text, exclusive unit, you have a summary of the whole play itself. So Joe Keller is a businessman who runs an industry that deals with making cylinder heads for aircrafts. He is a man who owns a factory. He deals with, manufacturing of cylinder heads, which are meant for aircrafts. He is supposed to supply those, spare parts for Army, that is Air Force. Now, he is the protagonist. You can call him, a tragic hero as such. We have seen in Macbeth. Macbeth is called a tragic hero because, he had that vaulting ambition, and that ambition took his life away. And also before dying, he also had killed several innocent people. So Joe Keller, at the end of the story, commits suicide, dear friends. He could not really sustain the burden of the sin he had committed. He is a businessman. He had got the knack of doing business. And he has got this, desire also to grow as a businessman. He wants to build an empire, with his own limits as well. He also wants to, set up an exclusive industry for his own son. He says he's doing business not only for his sake, for his family's sake, for his son's sake. He says that. And then you have, this man, Joe Keller. No doubt, he owns industry, he owns a factory, he owns a business, but he doesn't own crime. That is important about Joe Keller. He's always referred to as Keller in the dialogue section. He never owns the crime he has committed. ತಾನು ಮಾಡಿರುವ ಅಪರಾಧವನ್ನ ಅವನು ಒಪ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಿಲ್ಲ. Ownership he always claims for his business, my dear friends. So which is a very, very important, observation we can make here. Next, you have Kate Keller, his wife. She's a struggling mother with overwhelming capacity for love. Most importantly, though she is the wife of Joe Keller, throughout the play, throughout the drama, she is presented as a mother throughout, whenever she speaks. whenever you have a dialogue from this lady, it is not Kate Keller which is mentioned there. It is always written mother. So what can we understand by this? Is this a ploy, or is this something which is, hinting at something? Is Arthur Miller trying to say something more just by calling her mother, or just by allowing her to speak as mother? No doubt. She is more a mother than a wife. If you see the story, she is a very duty-bound, dutiful wife, no doubt. She loves her husband. And she knows that, her husband has committed a crime, a blunder, which has taken the toll as well. And she also tries to make him understand that at some point of time, you have to accept the crime, you have to admit the crime as well. But she fails to do that. But towards the end, when son also joins mother in making Joe Keller understand his responsibility, well, he succumbs then. So Kate Keller is some sort of, embodiment of love, embodiment of, pleading her husband as well. Also, she is very, very nice as a mother as well. In fact, she has got her own dilemma as well when it comes to the next slide. Probably I'll introduce the dilemma factor of Kate Keller. The third one is Mr. Chris. Chris Keller is the son of Joe and Kate, who stands for social responsibility and ethical uprightness. Many critics feel that Chris is the Miller's voice in the play. Chris is the Miller's voice in the play. Arthur Miller, as I had suggested earlier, I had hinted earlier, he wants to say something, what he has got in his mind, and he always uses a character, one of the characters in the story. And in this play, it is Chris predominantly who speaks the mind of Arthur Miller, the playwright himself. He's known for, he's a young man. He is also a man who has got a little bit of experience in the war. He was also a commander-in-chief for his own contingent. He is really shattered by the nature of war. He does not like war at all. And he is so disillusioned with this concept of war. I mean, no matter how many people fight and how many people die, society and its people will never reform themselves. And that is why he hates that. He hates all those people who are involved in this. And Chris is a man who is tremendously morally and ethically very upright. Very upright. He is not like his father, no doubt. He appreciates his father for his business acumen, business tactics, but he doesn't really, show a sort of crookedness or illegal way of thinking, immoral way of, doing a business. No, he is very ethical and upright, my dear friends. Next, you have a female character, Anne Deaver. She's called Anne. She is the lady love of Chris. She's caught between two men as such, initially rather. Initially she was supposed to marry Larry, the first son of Keller's. But after, Larry goes missing and presumably dead, she decides, which is practically oriented as well, she decides to marry Chris. Even Chris wanted to marry Anne Deaver. Her loyalty is split between two men, whereas, she sorts that out, but quickly she accepts the reality also. She is in love with Chris. Most importantly, she loves the family of Chris. Joe Keller, Kate Keller, Chris, and even Larry for that matter, when he was available. So Anne Deaver is a very, very curious character. And next you have George Deaver. George is the brother of Anne, and both George and Anne are the two children of Mr. Steve. Now, who is the Steve? Steve is one of the partners. He is the partner of Joe Keller in that business, which really deals with, making cylinder heads for aircrafts. Unfortunately, Steve is serving a sentence in a prison in Columbus, in Ohio. When play begins, this man, the father of Anne and George, he is in jail. He has been punished for something which he has not done, to some extent rather. He has been brutally punished and he's serving his sentence there. And these two are the children of, Steve. George is the brother of Anne. He is a young lawyer who initially supports Anne's marriage with Chris, but later opposes it. He wants to avenge his father, Steve's punishment. He wants to take revenge against Joe Keller because he comes to know what Joe Keller had done previously. Well, my dear friends, just to give you a sort of insight into the play, it so happens that once Joe Keller had got a sort of order from the government to supply the cylinder heads. In one of those batches, in one of those consignments, there were some faulty, cracked cylinder heads. Steve, one of the partners of the company, he had informed that, this is a batch which contains faulty cylinders. But Joe Keller from home on that day had given his consent to send those faulty cylinders, cracked cylinders, to the Army Air Force. After welding and correcting them, just cover it up, weld them up and send the same, because we have to meet the demands of the government. They were badly in need of cylinder heads because it's a wartime. And only after getting the telephonic consent, oral consent of Joe Keller, Steve had dispatched them. But later on, what happens? When 21 pilots get killed in the air crash, the government will set up an agency, inquiry, and the courts decide that Steve is to be punished, not Joe Keller, because his alibi was he was not available on that day at the office when they were dispatched. So throughout the play, Joe Keller knew very well that he has done something wrong, a serious blunder, but he is scot-free, whereas his partner is suffering in jail. My dear friends, this is a point to be noted. Perhaps when you read the play, you will come to know everything. Now, coming to the two important characters in the story, Larry. Larry, as I told, he is a missing son of Joe and Kate. In fact, he is referred to as a missing son, but most of them believe that he is already dead. He's not alive, except Kate Keller, a mother. As a mother, she still feels that one day or the other, her son is going to come, because according to her, the body is not recovered. So therefore, she's still waiting. The other character is Steve, father of Anne and George. They are mentioned in the story, but never appear on the stage. Both Larry and Steve, they are not to be appearing on the stage, but they're only referred to by other characters. And lastly, we have some neighbors as well. Neighbors to Keller's home. Who are they? Dr. Jim Bayliss and his wife Sue Bayliss. His is one family, along with their son Bert, who is an 8-year-old boy. And on the other side, you have another family, which is Frank Lube's family, along with his wife, Lydia as well. So both Dr. Jim and Frank, they are the closest neighbors to Joe Keller. They're not only neighbors, they're family friends. As neighbors, they know a little bit of blunder which has taken place in this family. Also, they suspect Joe Keller for something as well. And there is one important thing about this Frank Lube. Frank Lube is very interested in reading horoscopes or making horoscopes. He's making a horoscope for Larry, who is presumed dead. Normally, you will not really make a horoscope for somebody who is not alive. But in this case, surprisingly, he does a horoscope. He reads a horoscope for Larry, who is missing. And surprisingly, the boy, 8-year-old boy, Bert, who is the son of Dr. Jim Bayliss, he's so fond of Joe Keller. Joe Keller is a 60-year-old man. He likes those kids as well. And whenever, Joe and Bert come together, they always talk about a sort of police and thief game, a sort of jail game. It is also something which is suggestive, rather. Though a boy is so crazy about jail, Joe Keller has got something more interesting to say, something about jail, because he has jailed somebody in reality. Because of him, he has jailed somebody like Steve, in a cell. So these are the characters who appear, on stage, my dear friends. And if you look at the next slide, well, this is about the confession, the complexity. You come across several, dilemmatic situations to do this or not to do that. You have some annotable lines as well, which you come across in the story as you start doing the lesson. Look at the couple of points there. I have just made a note of those important, points. Kate Keller, who is referred to as mother, rather, she says always no to Chris and Anne marriage because it would mean Larry is dead. No, that's a very tricky situation for Keller, poor mother. If she says yes to Chris and Anne marriage, it will invariably mean that her first son is not going to come. He is not available. She has to accept that, her son is already dead, which she doesn't want to, doesn't like to. So it is a sort of dilemma for her. Even there is another point here. Look at the second one. Many a times even Anne requests Kate Keller and tells Kate to accept Larry's death. Dear Kate Keller, you have to one day or the other, accept the fact that your son is already dead. You have to accept that, your son is not going to come. But Kate can't accept that because it would mean Joe as the killer of his son or her son, rather. If she accepts that, Larry is not going to come, it would mean her own husband, Joe Keller, who has cheated the society, who has been indirectly responsible for the killing of 21 pilots, if not really, Larry, invariably, indirectly, he's referring to that rather. So it would mean father as the killer of, her son, so which she never likes to rather. Kate wants to keep Larry alive to delay the inevitable and inescapable confession of Joe. In a way, it is also a sort of, ploy. She never likes to see her husband humbled, rather, though she wants him to accept that. She always tries to postpone this inevitable and inescapable confession. She always says, Larry is going to come one day or the other. We have planted a tree for him. That is also a tree. One of the trees there in the yard of Keller home also plays a very pivotal role. In front of their house, there was a tree which was planted as a memorial for Larry. See, when the play begins, on the previous night, a strong wind had blown and it had just toppled the tree. It also sends a sort of signal that Larry is not going to come again. So, Kate wants to keep Larry alive. Joe is very sympathetic towards Steve, Anne, and George, as he feels very guilty at heart, though he claims he is gutsy. Alva, my dear friends, this is what I call conscience or inner voice. I can tell the whole world that, I have done nothing wrong in sending those faulty or cracked cylinder heads. But inside his heart, he is very, very soft towards three people. One is Steve, the other one is Anne, the third one is George, the two children of Steve and Steve himself. In so many scenes there, you will see, Joe Keller expressing his soft corner towards Steve. He says in one of the dialogues, I want Steve to come back, after, completing his punishment. I will once again welcome him to be my partner in the business. He has to learn how to be gutsy, how to face society. I have gone through such times as well. And even I want to see good things happening in the lives of his two children, Anne and George. In fact, George happens to be a young lawyer. In fact, Joe Keller promises George that he is going to set up a wonderful future for George Deaver as a lawyer. So he has got soft corner for all these three. But the reason for having soft corner is a different thing, because he knows inwardly that he has wronged that family. He has done a sort of sin, inexcusable sin for that family. And Joe feels, the next point, he did not wrong anyone, as it was common in those days to cover up a little bit in business. Oh God, most of the people in those days thought that, well, in business, you can't be fair always, we have a saying in Sanskrit, Vyaparam droha chintanam. Drava chintanam also. Drava means, the wealth factor. Droha chintanam as well. In a business, in any sort of business, you can't be upright always. A little bit of cover up is very much required. So therefore, sometimes Joe poses as if, he is very gutsy and he has not wronged anyone. He has not wronged anyone. So he takes a very bold call at times. Joe tells he wronged for the sake of his son, his family, and his business aspirations. Well, when he was posed a question by his, by his son Chris and his wife Kate, he said that he did all those things which he did for the sake of his son, for the sake of family, for the sake of my expansion of the business. So what's wrong in that? Everybody else do that. Why I alone? Why me alone, for that matter? Well, Larry, the last point here, Larry may not be one of the 21 pilots who were killed. And that is the Joe's defense. But Chris dismisses that and he wants father to admit his crime. In one of the acts, he says, look, my dear Chris, I know you are targeting me, but I was not responsible for the death of those 21 pilots. I did not kill those 21 pilots. I mean, directly. And most importantly, Larry did not die because of me. He was not one among the 21 pilots. In one of those scenes in the third act, Larry's letter is read by, Chris to his father. He has got a letter. In fact, it was written by Larry before he went on a mission. On the day of, his death or reported missing, he had written a letter to his family that he is not going to return. And he knew very well that he will be reported missing because he had read by then all the news about the fiasco made by the business house of Joe Keller and Steve. How could these business people cause a blunder by supplying faulty cylinders to Army Air Force and cause the death of innocent people? Now, it is nice. If I am hit by my enemy, then it's okay. But if I am hit by my own people, my own family members, if not directly, indirectly, it really hurts. So Larry also had suspected a foul hand in this dispatch of cracked cylinder heads. He always suspected that, his father had a hand in it. So this letter is a turning point in the story. It will force Joe Keller to accept his crime, to admit his crime, and finally he does that rather. He says, Larry is not one among the 21 pilots. Why should I consider myself as somebody who has killed his son? My son was not killed then. But in the letter it was mentioned by Larry. And even he knows, at the end, Joe Keller says, even though Larry knows that very well, he wants me to consider all those 21 pilots as my sons. And that is where the title of the play comes here, my dear friends. All my sons. Whoever had died in the battlefield because of my blunder, my mistake, they were all my sons. Though they were not my sons in reality, I have to consider them all as my sons. Yellaru nammavare. These are the words uttered by, Joe Keller. He knew very well that Chris and Larry, Chris is available there. Larry is not available. He's already dead. Both Chris and Larry want their father to consider all those men who had died in the battlefield, in the crash, as the sons of, this man, Joe Keller. All are our sons. All those people are my sons. So Larry's letter forces Joe to consider all the men who died in the war as his sons. Joe commits suicide and is unable to bear the burden of sin. My dear friends, finally, in the last act, it is somewhat, very, nice to see that. Very interesting, I'm sorry. Initially, Joe Keller gets up gets up to ready himself, to dress himself up. He goes inside the room and he wanted to come out, go along with his son Chris to the police station or, to the court, ready to accept his fault. But as soon as he goes inside, inside the room, somehow he decides against it. He could not show his face to the society. He shoots himself. He commits suicide. He kills himself. The whole play is full of confessions, full of complexities. Our lives are also full of complexities, my dear friends. And this particular play will reflect the same, rather. Maybe it teaches a lesson or two for all of us, for teachers and the taught as well, whoever, rather, to learn something about ethical responsibility, moral responsibility. So, my dear friends, that actually concludes my presentation as far as all my sons is concerned. If permitted, I will complete my remaining 2 slides on language part, if that is allowed, and then I will be able to take questions. Madam?
You can finish your presentation fully, and then if there are any questions, we'll take that up. Till now, I cannot see any questions as such.
Fine, absolutely okay. Right, ma'am. Dear friends, as I had promised, well, now we have a different text altogether, a different slide with a different talking point. This is pertaining to language section. It comprises of 5 chapters, my dear friends. In the question paper, marks allotted for language section is 30 marks. The first chapter deals with jumbled sentences. It fetches you 5 marks. And second chapter deals with email writing, formal email writing, which also fetches students 5 marks. And the third one being a very important one and a useful one today, resume. And I want you to read that as resume and cover letter, though it's not clearly mentioned in the index of the textbook. It is resume and cover letter. So in the examination, 5 marks for resume, 5 marks for writing a cover letter, total 10 mark segment, resume and cover letter. And the fourth chapter is interview skills, which will fetch the students 5 marks. And the questions will be dialogue based, conversation based. They will be giving students situation, and students will be asked to frame a sort of dialogue format between the interviewer and the interviewee. So situation will be given by them, and there are ample exercises, in the section, in the chapter. And the fifth one being book review writing, which also fetches 5 marks. And these 5 marks are earmarked for book review writing. And all these 5 marks will be based on question and answers. You have to read that chapter as just any other lesson. You have to, get all the details about how to review a book, a work of art, or a movie, whatever, rather. And then you will have to deal with all the important points in the chapter. And in the question paper, you will be given 5 questions, and you will have to straight away write answers in a sentence or 2. That is how, the testing will be made on book review writing, my dear friends. No one will ask the students to write a review of a particular book. I repeat this. Even yesterday, Dr. R.V. Sheila, madam, had made it clear. So let us have a look at all these 5. Now, why they have been kept? Jumbled sentences, as madam was yesterday rightly suggesting, that this is the next level of what we had in the first semester. In the first semester, we had a very ordinary, the first level, the basic level of rearranging the sentences in an order. Whereas here, there is a slight difference. No doubt you will have to arrange them. You have to sequence them in an order. Also, there is an extra sentence given there. That is the odd sentence. You have to just set it apart, rather. So that is one special thing included in this section. Well, this is useful for competitive examinations, as it had been made clear already. The second one is formal email writing. Needless to say, emails are very formal, and we have to deal with email writing as formal because we are training BCom students, no doubt. the next 2 semesters, they will not have a language section. So this is the last textbook where we can use all our skills, all our might to make them understand how to compose an email, a formal email. Well, in the section formal email writing, some of my colleagues also last week when the book was released, they were of the opinion and they also gave me certain suggestions as well, which I also agreed upon. Rather, in almost all the examples given in the chapter formal email writing, we have used the names which are non-native. English names have been used there. Many of my colleagues felt the need for having some sort of nativity here. Why can't we have our own names, at least, the sender, the receiver? So I just said, absolutely right. Even we can accommodate that in our own classes as well. We can modify them. We can appropriate them according to our, taste as well, our needs as well. So we can really, teachers have got every right to compose their own examples, frame their own examples, along with the format given in the chapter. Format is very, very crucial because students will be answering these questions from the point of view of marks, my dear friends. So nowhere we should really, undermine the importance of mark getting. So the third one is resume and cover letter. Nowadays, having a resume and even a cover letter, writing a cover letter has been the order of the day. It is the need of the hour as well. One should really know what sort of resume one should have and what is the difference between a resume and a CV, and what is a biodata, what is a profile, who can have a biodata, when can we have a biodata, when can we have a profile, who can have resume, what are the yardsticks here to measure. All these things will be made known by the teachers in those respective classes. And I would really request all my teachers here to come out with your own versions of resume if possible, and try to stick to the format given in the chapter and give them with ample examples as well. That could be done as well. That needs to be done. And the fourth one being interview skills. The fourth and the fifth one, they are higher order skills. So especially interview skills today, students should be getting ready to face interviews, all those GD sessions, group discussion, how one should stand, what is the aptness of body language. And this interview skills will be tested in the form of dialogues. What will be the question asked by, the panel members, and what will be the answer that needs to be given by, the interviewed rather. So all these things will be discussed in the chapter. And I said book review, you will be made known. The students will have to be made known about what important things one needs to learn while appreciating an artwork. It could be a book, it could be a movie, it could be a teleserial, it could be a poem, it could be a play, whatever. Any creative art. So you should tell them how to do that. And even this chapter contains a lot of elements there. Now, the last slide, before I end up, this is, the first one is language section, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That fetches, 30 marks. And next you have 40 marks from literature section. Answer any 4 of the following questions in about a page each. They will be asked, students will be asked to answer 4 out of 6 questions from poetry and poetry alone. You can refer the model question paper. All the 6 questions will be from poetry, my dear teachers, and only 4 need to be answered. So it will be a 5-mark segment. They will have to answer in a page each. And the 6th one, answer any one of the following questions in about 2 pages. This is which I really wanted to stress upon. Now, this 7th main is exclusively meant for Arthur Miller's play, All My Sons. Now, you will be giving 3 questions from the play and play alone, and students will have to answer only 1 question out of that. So it carries 10 marks. And well, my friends who had a talk with me, they also expressed that such a lovely, such a wonderful text, probably it should have had, some more, marks added to that. Really, 10 marks for a very good book is not sufficient. But I just said, we want to give a lot of, impetus to poetry section now. So therefore, 10 marks for play and 30 marks for the remaining thing, from poetry. So 2 pages from, one from, the drama. The last segment, the last main is answer any one of the following questions, very similar to the 7th one in format. 1 out of 3 questions only from poetry. Only from poetry, I repeat. Don't get confused with the 7th one and the 8th one. So this is also a 10-mark question. So they will have to answer in a page or so. So my dear friends, well, this is something which I wanted to share with you, and hope I have come to the end of my session. Well, it is 5:15 now. Well, if I'm allowed to, face the questions from my
Yes,
dearest
sir.
friends, I would be really happy to answer them.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful session. We have 15 minutes now for the question answers. Please post your questions in the chat box so that sir can take it up. I think there was one comment by, if I'm right, by in the chat box by Dr. S. Govindappa, who says that consider all my sons as modern tragedy.
Why not?
Yeah, that's the comment he has made. Would you like to reflect on that, sir?
Absolutely. I am a good friend of, Govindappa has been a good friend of mine. I really like his approach as well. Thank you so much, sir. Adanna modern tragedy antane ನಾವು ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. In fact, ಅದನ್ನೇ ನಾನು ಮೊದಲು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೆ. I was just, giving some sort of similarity between Shakespeare and, Arthur Miller. It is a tragic play, no doubt. It is not just because of the death of one of the characters, but it is the death of values, death of morality. That really, ನಾವು ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಮಾನವೀಯತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ ನೈತಿಕತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, the morality factor, that is what is dead, especially when it comes to business part. When it comes to business, trade, all these things, corporate, offices rather, establishments, huge money is invested on, so many things, but hardly we look at some people who will invest on ideals, models, values, family relationships. Now, this is what is missing. Definitely, sir. I wholeheartedly agree with, Dr. Govindappa when he says this is a modern tragedy. Absolutely right. And I also take an exception here. I'm not commenting on all business houses here. There are so many business houses in India and abroad. They have, corporate social responsibility, no doubt about that. But there is a question that can be raised. Now, that is something which I wanted to share with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We have Sheila, madam. She wants to add something.
Yeah.
Ma'am, please go ahead, ma'am. Please add your observations. Sheila, ma'am. Sheila, ma'am, please go ahead and. Sheila, ma'am, are you able to hear us? I'm not able to hear her. Probably she.
No, actually, I have asked Shruti to unmute
okay.
her.
Yeah, there are also other comments, sir. If you can see in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm
Anita,
seeing.
ma'am. Yeah.
Ma'am, Sheila ma'am is promoted as panelist, so she can talk now.
Okay. Thank you, Shruti ma'am. Yeah, the feedback form will be provided, ma'am. There are a lot of people who are asking for the feedback form. It will be posted in a couple of minutes. Family being an important projection of American life, it's important in molding personalities, is also very important, is what she's saying. That's a comment by Anita, ma'am.
I agree with Dr. Anita Rao, because whatever she has observed is absolutely right. Just to extend what she has observed, American life, I mean, this is an American story, no doubt about that. But as I said, it is universally applicable. Even everywhere, this can be extended rather. I mean, family relationships should not be ignored rather when it comes to business models as well. Absolutely right.
Yeah, there's one more question, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Okay. Sorry for the delay. There was some net issue.
It's okay, ma'am.
In fact, I would like to congratulate Professor Narasimhan on a very good presentation that he has given on the play.
Thank
And
you.
in fact, I would like to add one or two things to it. In the sense, we discuss All My Sons as a play with a sense of responsibility, the theme of a sense of responsibility. And here, somehow there seems to be a sense of responsibility that is construed as one that is construed as greater than the other. In the sense, how Joe Keller considers his own sense of responsibility towards his family to be bigger than his sense of responsibility towards the society.
Yeah.
And there is this attitude of maybe, yes, that's okay. In fact, if one consignment goes with defective cylinder heads, that should be okay in a business, right? So
Yeah.
that kind of it's okay an attitude is not okay.
Yeah.
So that is the kind of compromise in maybe the quality of work in terms of responsibility that we need to condemn. And that's one message that really comes across very strongly. And at the same time, when I read the play, I found that Kate Keller, the mother, is a very, very strong character. Because initially she comes across as a very sentimental mother and later as a devoted wife. And at the same time, there are many shades to her character.
True.
So Kate Keller's character has many shades to it. And at the same time, talking about Joe Keller,
Yeah.
he says, I think in one of those acts there, maybe in the third act, when Chris points out that this was not actually right for him to have given his consent to send the consignment with defective cylinder heads. Then he says, go damn it. If I have to go behind the bars,
Yeah.
you'll have to build a wall around the world.
True.
Because I'm just doing whatever others are doing.
Exactly.
So whatever other people are doing, I'm also doing it. So what's wrong with it?
Yeah.
So
I have
this is the kind of skewed conscience that he has. Yes.
Yeah.
Sir,
Yes, please, Narasimhan.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
sorry,
Thank
sorry, madam. Sorry, madam. In fact, I can remind you of the actual, line uttered by Joe Keller there. If I got to go, the whole nation got to go. The health now.
Yeah, right. No, he says that. Exactly.
No,
And
if
so
I-
this is a play with the conflict
Yeah.
between
Yeah.
a very realistic and practical-minded, business-oriented, profit-making father
Yeah.
and his idealistic sons, Larry and Chris. Larry, who tries to own up the moral responsibility for his father's sin and commits suicide.
Yeah.
And Chris, who wants him to admit it in the court of law that he is a culprit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So here we find the conflict between profit-making businessman who is a father and his idealistic sons.
Sure. Definitely.
Yeah. That's it. I think I'm done.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the input. Sir, there are some more questions if you can see in the chat box.
Sure.
They're saying this, how much time has been allotted for teaching the play All My Sons? That is one question. And Anita ma'am has a comment saying that Mrs. Whistler being an important painting, we can talk about that. And then and there is one more comment. I'm just going to read everything and you can respond one by one. There's also Anita ma'am who says, so also death of CEOs due to stress and debts can also be discussed in the class. For example, the Siddhartha, the Coffee Day, CEO who committed suicide. So it's also a space for us to talk about those kind of aspects also, those kind of realistic examples around us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
there's one more.
I will first take up that number of hours to be engaged for All My Sons. Even Dr. R.V. Sheila madam can correct me if I am wrong. Well, fourth semester BCom will have 4 classes in a week, 4 English classes in a week. And 2 classes for insights for the first book and 2 classes for the play. Probably that is how we have visualized. Sheila, madam, would you like to, throw some light on that?
Yes, it's actually 4 hours in the week. And
Yeah.
if we presume that a semester will have about 12 weeks, that is 12 into 4, we'll have about 48 hours. And maybe if you can discount our holidays, hours let off and all that, about 45 to 48 hours.
Okay.
And in the 45 to 48 hours, maybe we can spare 15 to 20 hours for the play.
Sufficient.
15 to 20 depending on the availability.
Yeah.
And the other 15 to 20 to the poetry section. And language section will also take about 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah. Okay. And I think this is a question from one of my good friends, Dr. Narasimha sir. Sir, I think I have cleared your point. And most importantly, it all dwells with it all will be with the teachers. We can always make sure. Sometimes we can shift from insights for text to all my sons to text as well. So that can be done as well. And most importantly, these are the online sessions that we are going to engage for some time now. And
well, it depends on the class as well.
Yeah.
It depends on the class as well.
I agree, madam. Madam Anita Rao, madam also has written something about Mrs. Whistler being an important painting. We can talk about that. Even she mentions several, luminaries rather of business, COOs and CEOs of several companies. They, due to stress and debts, they also suffer and they collapse as well. We have got so many examples in our households, in our own territory as well. And that can be discussed. Just like I discussed, I gave the examples of COVID deaths of teachers. We can give, the examples of so many other businessmen, who were presumed to be extremely rich, but they did not have that moral courage or, for that matter, the kind of sustenance that really required to face boldly the situations. So business making is also important, but more important is that, how valuable you are to society and how contributing you are to society and how strong from within you are is another important golden point, which we all need to understand. Thank you so much for that, Anita Rao.
And I think in the COVID times, when people are selling oxygen and remdesivir for profit making.
Absolutely. That is unfair.
It's so much relevant today when we speak of ethics and morality in their professions.
Yeah.
These are doctors, those are businessmen. That's all about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here we are not talking about just business houses or big shots. Even for a small, boy, for a young boy, for example, one who is scoring several thousands of rupees every month, he or she should feel that, they should not really involve themselves in some unfair means to earn money.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree with you.
So there are 2 more questions I would like to just read out. All my sons are waking call to view society realistically with an brimming idealism and optimism. That's one suggestion or a comment that is there. And there's another question by Mr. Anil Kumar, who says that, can we call this play a realism play or a realistic play? Yeah.
Well, that we can appropriate, no doubt about that. Well, as far as, even Manoj Jain also made a comment about Vijay Mallya, Siddharth, some coffee house, owner. Well, this can be appropriated to our own circumstances. And that is where the brilliance of the teacher, comes in as well. It will be very handy for us, to give as many living examples as well.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any more questions? The feedback form will be now put up. Akhila ma'am, we are putting it up now.
Yeah. Shruti ma'am.
Okay. Yes.
Sir, Narasimhan sir, one more an observation from my side as such. Arthur Miller's one question and one suggestion. Arthur Miller's this play, can it be compared with any other play to the best of our knowledge. And that is like a suggested reading which is given, or
Yeah.
on par with, or something like that. And one more observation of mine is Arthur Miller's construction structure of the play, where it all topsy-turvies the idealisms and the things, and American dream and the chaos that was there in the modern world. Okay. And moreover, his main characters committing suicide, when you compare that with the Lomans, that is in the other play.
Yeah. Akhila madam, just to give you an idea, I think I had given a hint in the first slide, before the first slide itself, when I was making my initial remarks, that the translation of this story, this play is available in Kannada. That is one thing. And Death of a Salesman by the same author, by the same playwright as well. That could be one of the greatest readings as well. And I deliberately wanted, I know I can be, corrected if I'm wrong, rather. Somehow I feel going to Shakespearean tragedies, rather. There he had, the element of ambition. I mean, here also you have some other element which prompts a very, very successful businessman, collapsing at the end of the story, succumbing to the pressure of morality. So all these things could be compared, that there are possibilities of that. So I really think that, suggest as many tragedies, tragic plays as possible. Death of Salesman is another great important thing which can be suggested. And one more thing, I always want teachers, in fact, I have been doing that, real life examples which could be given to them will go a long way in grasping the situation. For example, this is a story of 1940s, Second World War. Maybe I may not be able to relate what is this so-called American dream. Even today, America is a superpower, no doubt about that. It wants to have its own hegemony on literally every section of the globe. It wants to have its own stamp on everything. Even today, it's a big brotherly attitude. But American dream is shattered. If you look at the intellectual, criticism of America, all the plays and all the writings, even in the story itself, Chris, one of the characters of, All My Sons, he is shattered by this American dream. After all, what are we fighting for, rather? I mean, aren't we really prompting our own people to become a cause for the killing of innocent people? That is exactly shattering of, shattered dream it is, American dream. So it could be an Indian dream as well. I mean, why are we talking about only American dream here? Why can't be about, Indian dream? We have got our own dreams as well. India has to be pharmacy #1 in the world, military #1 in the world, or in the field of science and technology, this and that. But we can't really do that at the cost of innocent lives. Yeah, absolutely. Marilyn Monroe is another. I never wanted to, speak a lot about that personal matter anyhow, but no doubt. I mean, it's anyhow available on the net. You can access that as well. That is one thing.
Sir, there's another question about how to approach internal assessment marks with that assignment and test regarding this. There's another question regarding that, sir. How to approach internal assessment marks and test. There's another.
As far as internal assessment marks are concerned, it is clearly given in the foreword as well. In the textbook, it is clearly available. Even Dr. Arvi Sheila yesterday, when she made a remark on that, she had made it very clear how to award those marks as well. I agree. University has given us some guidelines. We have to, abide by them. But this is a tough time. These are the tough times where some of the rules and regulations or guidelines given by the university will never stand ground. That is a reality which we all have to accept. Correct me if I'm wrong. So, for example, attendance factor. Now, if I take attendance factor as something which I will have to award marks for students, in most of my classes, 50% of the attendance is available, whereas the remaining 50% or 40% or 30% will not be, logged in. So what can I do then? They will have their own reasons to give. And these are the pandemic, conflicts we are facing. And somewhere down the line, the teachers, the managements, the principal it is restricted to those colleges how they are able to award those marks. It could be assignments. You can ask students to, send a photograph or copy of that assignment, submit online. You can do that. And even attendance factor, whoever is seen online, in the participant list, you can make a download of that list of names. That is possible. But I honestly believe we should not be harsh on students. And if you want to strictly follow guidelines, I think we are in for a great trouble. And that is something which we cannot deny as well.
Okay, sir. There's a list of suggestions by Anita ma'am on some of the text films and that we probably can tap while we are teaching this particular text. And we also have another comment by Flory James. She says that to be positive, can we suggest a successful story of businessman in real life who is successful because of the alignment of ethics in his business? It will not, not boost moral values. To make it more positive, I think is what she's trying to say.
Yeah. There is a little bit of care that needs to be taken here. Flory James, thank you so much. To be positive, can we suggest a successful story of businessman in real life who is successful because of the alignment with ethics in business? Why not? That's what I said. You can give, if you have access to some real life examples, the one who is present, alive even now, or for that matter, who has just passed on rather, you can give real life examples, though being in business, never compromised with moral values. That absolutely can be given. But one more thing, my dear teacher friends, what happens is many a times students can really read it wrong rather. They can really take it very wrongly rather. The death of one of the characters at the end of the story should be handled very carefully by us teachers. I believe that because, I have committed a sin, because I have wronged somebody heavily, death for me is not and should never be the last resort. I should not. I know very well that's how the story goes. But while dealing with, my dear students in front of me, I will have to be very careful in letting them know that there are as many ways as possible how you can punish yourself, how you can accept, admit the crime, sin before everyone in society and get punished rather. But causing death to yourself or killing yourself should not be even last resort, should not be even the last resort. That is something which we need to highlight. Probably students should not really feel that is the last resort because he was weak-minded, he collapsed. Maybe that is true. He could not really bear the burden of the sin. But while actually imparting this particular valuable, work of art, probably we can take care of that, how to handle our own children.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. That was an important comment. Thank you so much. I think.
And one more thing, sorry, madam, sorry to interrupt you.
No, sir, not at all, sir.
I just want to, thank all my committee members, Dr. Arivishila, my chairperson, my mentor as well. I really respect her a lot. And all my committee friends, all the members of the committee, for sitting together and deliberating, for agreeing and disagreeing. All these, deliberations took place, and it was a fantastic time. We have successfully come out with 4 books, not really in the form of a book. I really quote them. It is in the form of an e-book rather. So thank you so much for all the cooperation that I got from my dearest, textbook committee members. Thank you so much for Shiv Prasad sir also for giving me an opportunity here. Thank you again, Jain College and all my friends there, Dr. Katyayani madam, Akhila madam, and Usha madam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think we can wind up the session. I don't see any other questions or comments.
Okay.
So we can end the session. We've come to the end of a very lively, very detailed look at the play, Arthur Miller's All My Sons. In today's context of consumerism and capitalist modernity, when youngsters are in such pressure today to measure up to certain kind of standards of living and, wanting success, I think this play really offers an immense opportunity for both teacher and the student to really reflect on the kind of ethics and morals which are very important for not just human survival but environment and universe as a whole. So thank you, sir. It was a wonderful session. You gave us a very detailed look at the author, the plot, the characters, the various themes, and I think it really generated, that kind of discussion even in our minds. It was a wonderful session, and we look forward to, interact with you in future also. Thank you so much on behalf of our college, our principal, and the Department of English. I offer my sincere thanks to you.
Just before end, madam, I have given my details in the, I will also post it in the group.
Sure.
If anybody is, really wants any clarification, questions, or, suggestions as well, I'm always open for that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Ma'am? Usha ma'am?
Yeah, ma'am.
Ma'am, about tomorrow.
Why are they saying they're not able to fill the feedback form? I was, ಏನಾಯ್ತು ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಏನಾಗ್ತಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ.
ಹೌದಾ?
Whatever it is, Papa, she has reposted.
Yes,
So let's
again
check.
reposting it from that time.
Yeah. You'll have to repost it because as and when the comments come, it will scroll up.
Yeah.
And
there are still 43 participants. I think they are all filling up the form.
Yeah.
And even I've checked also it's working, ma'am. So not to an issue.
No, all the forms are working. I've checked it and then asked the students to send it to you. There wouldn't be any, so problematic as such, unless there is a poor network from their side.